my name is Bryce Bucher. I'm the Senior Systems Integration Manager here at Flexwear. So we'll go a little bit through introductions here in a second, but a little bit about myself. I've worked for Flexwear for the past 10 years, but I've spent the last 25 years working in manufacturing systems for a couple different companies. And so I find myself leading a team of engineers who are looking kind of into emerging technologies. RTLS happens to be one of those technologies that we're starting to work with. So welcome to everybody here. So goals for today, really two simple goals. I want to make sure that everybody walks away knowing what is RTLS, what does it mean, what does it involve, and how can it help you? How can it potentially help you back at your companies? This is a dual event, so Flexwear Innovation. This is our building here. We've got Ubisense here as well. Ubisense, we'll talk through a little bit of the back history here, but we're partnering with Ubisense. We think they're a leader in the RTLS space, and we're happy to work with them on customer projects. So we're kind of co-presenting today. So agenda of what we want to walk through. So we want to go through some introductions here in a little bit. We want to learn a little bit about you guys, make sure that you know a little bit about some of your peers as well to get some cross-talk going. But then getting into the formal agenda, we'll start with what is RTLS. Brad here from Ubisense will lead us through an overview of that. And then how can it help me? We'll talk about some example use cases of how we've seen RTLS provide value for customers. We'll start to talk through some of the specifics of how it might relate to your particular use cases. We've got a demo out here in our union area that we want to go through. We've got 4 different use cases, and we'll lead you through all of that stuff. And then when we're done out there, we can come back in here to do a recap and answer any more questions that we have. And then that will kind of end the formal event, but we're going to stick around for a couple hours after that. If anybody wants to really dive deep into their specific topics, then we're happy to stick around and talk through those with you. So we'll call that our breakout and meet the engineers. So with that, is this guy working yet? Yeah, okay. Okay, so let's quickly go through some introductions from a Flexwear standpoint. So you guys all met Dwayne when you came in today. Dwayne's our Director of Marketing. He's handling all the audio, video stuff for the event, a lot of the planning. So thank you, Dwayne, for helping us out there. I already introduced myself, Bryce Bucher. We have Brent Mariner back there in the back. So Brent's going to play a pretty major role today. He's kind of leading all of the demos that we have out in the union and was kind of the brains behind setting up a lot of the architecture for the use cases that we're going to go through. We have Jared Smith back here. So Jared's a new engineer here at Flexwear, and he's kind of the puppet master. He wrote some of the code behind the scenes and wired some of this stuff up, so he understands how all this technology works. We have Gabby Stewart back there, who is representing our business development team. We also have a couple other folks, Jeff Etchison and Travis Ewing here from our business development team. So if there's any account or sales related questions, they can help you with that as well. So we have some other engineers here who have played some key roles. Eric Hollerine, is he in here? He is not in here. He's out there, okay. Josh Dimry, I think, is also out there. Okay, and Andrea is not feeling well. She's another senior systems engineer who's not here today. So those are the Flexwear players. And then from the Ubisense side, we have Brad Williams over here. Casey Riva is back there. He's the technical consultant from Ubisense. So if you have any questions about how the underlying technology works, he's the best person to start with. We have Art Quintero here as well from Ubisense, and Fernando Garcia back there as well. So hopefully we've got it covered. We usually try not to outnumber customers, but I think we're getting close today. So, but hopefully we can answer all of your questions. So what I'd like to do to start with is go through some introductions for all of you. Okay, well, we're going to start just with real briefly introduction to Flexwear, and then I'm going to transition pretty quickly into letting Brad take over. Brad's going to walk us through RTLS. And hey, there's John. Hi, John. We just did introductions. John's from Carrier, so welcome, John. So let me start with Flexwear super quick here. So I think most of you are familiar with Flexwear. Either you're doing business with us or you're considering doing business with us, but we've been around for 25 years. A lot of rapid growth over the last 10 years. When I started back in 2011, we were about 16 people. We're now up to 112. So most of those are engineers doing billable work for our customers. So we are really growing quickly. And we have global solutions deployed all over the world, and just lots of good experience. And we went pretty deep with a lot of our customers over those 25 years. As far as what industries we serve, we kind of run the gamut. One of our things is we try to be very knowledgeable from a domain standpoint. So we spread across all these different verticals for manufacturing. We'd like to think we've got it covered end to end, no matter what industry you're in. We think we've done projects in there, we can add some value. And then just as far as our service offerings go, over those 25 years, we kind of grew up as an MES company and a systems integrator. There's probably some buzzwords on here that are familiar to you. MES, HMI, ERP, these are foundational technologies that companies have been implementing over the last couple of decades. And as we start to hear more talk about digital transformation and Industry 4.0 and digital roadmap, we're starting to hear companies say, we've got these foundational legacy systems in place, now how can we take the next step? Where do we go from here in order to be able to drive more cost out of the organization and increase more automation? And that's where we're starting to focus more on these emerging technologies that I mentioned earlier. So Flexwear wants to keep pace with our customers and, in fact, kind of be out in front of them if possible to learn about some of these technologies that are coming down the road and how we can integrate those back into some of these foundational things in order to be able to drive more value. So here's a list of some of the technologies that we've started working with over the last 2 to 3 years. And you can see the RTLS here is on the list. And we became familiar with RTLS. We've known about it. It's technology that's kind of been around for 15-ish years. But it's kind of come down in cost lately and increased in accuracy, and it's starting to create a foothold with manufacturing. So we thought we needed to start learning more about it about a year and a half ago. There was some increased activity around needing to track people and things. A lot of that was frankly generated due to COVID. People wanted to know, how do we do contact tracing? How do we enforce social distancing and so forth? That was a conversation starter, and we figured we've got to learn some more about what are these location tracking services, what are they all about, who's the market leader, and how can Flexwear play a role there? And so we created a team, a little SWAT team, to go out and research what is RTLS. And a lot of what we've learned is going to be condensed down into what you guys are seeing today. So we looked at 24 different vendors in the space. There's a lot of people out there doing RTLS. And we asked questions. We sent out an RFI, request for information, for them to tell about their products, what the price point is, what services do they have around it, what is their go-to-market strategy, how mature is their product, et cetera. We kind of whittled it down to a top 3, and we went really deep with those top 3 and had personal interviews with them. They presented their solutions to us. We walked through a conversation, and at the end of the day, Flexwear decided that Ubisense was the market leader as far as RTLS goes. So we've done a lot of research on this, and they have a very mature product. It's on its 4th generation now. They've been around for 15 years. They're kind of the first ones to do a lot of the stuff that we're going to see today, and are more mature than a lot of other companies are. Plus, they just share similar core values to Flexwear from a company standpoint. So we invested in them. They invested in us a year ago. We formed a partnership. You can see we've got some Ubisense sensors in this room. There's 3 in here. We'll talk about. There's 4 out there in the Union area. So we've got their technology in-house, and we're starting to lay some of the Flexwear solutions around it to start to look at how do we integrate RTLS with other things in order to add value. So as we look at all of these emerging technologies, Flexwear is looking at them to see, is there any opportunity for Flexwear to innovate in these spaces? And in some cases, you've got market leaders who are years ahead of everyone else, and it doesn't make any sense to innovate. RTLS is one of those spaces. There's people out there that do it well. Ubisense does it the best. So Flexwear's like, well, we don't need to go create an RTLS solution. So how can we extend it and integrate with it in order to be able to add value? And one of those areas that we have been focusing on over the last 3 years is the concept of autonomous vehicle integration. So again, it's another thing that companies are looking at to improve their automation capabilities. They're starting to look at autonomous vehicles. How do we move product around? How do we accommodate staffing issues that we have with material handling folks? How do we drive more cost out of the business, et cetera? And so as more customers are looking at autonomous vehicles, we did see a niche or a gap in this particular area where there wasn't anyone out doing integration with those vehicles. So all these vehicles come with a vehicle management system, and it does a very good job of dispatching and deploying the fleet of vehicles, but there's no integration out to the ecosystem for customers. So we were hearing customers say, I need to integrate with my ERP system. I need to be able to send transport orders down, but there's no hooks in place to be able to do that. I need to be able to implement call stations in my work cells to be able to call for vehicles. There's no way to do that out of the box. So we saw an opportunity there. And over the course of the last 3 years, we've been building up a framework that we call LIFT. And it is a platform that sits on top of autonomous vehicles and allows us to be able to configure how those autonomous vehicles integrate in with the rest of the ecosystem. And so one of the things we're going to look at today, again, the power of all of these technologies is truly met whenever you can start to integrate them together to create a holistic solution. So when you start looking at autonomous vehicles and the concept of location tracking, and you pair those two things together and you have the ability to communicate back and forth, it opens up a whole host of new possibilities. So we hope to be able to show you guys what that looks like today and maybe start some thinking in your mind about how this might apply to your use cases as well. With that, I will turn it over to Brad for Ubisense.
All right. Thank you, Bryce. Yep. Well, hello again, everyone. Appreciate everybody coming out, especially with the soggy day that we have. As Bryce said, Ubisense has partnered with Flexwear now for about 1.5 years. And Ubisense is a company, we'll get into a little bit of how long we've been around, what markets we play in. But then we're going to take a journey through, in the next few slides coming up, we're just going to take a journey through how we kind of, from a base RTLS 101, look at location problems and how we categorize those. So kind of like the lens with which we look at manufacturing processes and what's addressable with real-time location systems. And then as we go out into some of the demonstrations, you'll begin to see some of those foundational pieces that we talk about here in different types of location problems demonstrated for you out with the live demos. So Ubisense exists, our vision to transform physical spaces into smart spaces. And this is the key here. So Ubisense started the technology came out of Cambridge University. The 4 founders are still with the company today. It was founded around the idea of sentient computing, which is also known as ubiquitous computing, which now you understand where the name Ubisense comes from. But really it's giving computers the ability to sense the physical world and do something with that information. So our founders are on the cutting edge of this technology, and they have, as Bryce mentioned, there's 2 product portfolios that I'll get into, but that's what we do, is try to bring location and location services and empower people in revolutionizing business processes. So where we are in terms of where we are, what we do, we're trusted in 6 of the top 10 Fortune 500 companies. A little hard to read like this. We have 16 years of experience deploying these types of location technology, and we're talking, in the automotive industry, we for over a decade we've been getting 6 Sigma reliability with our location technology if the application calls for that. More than 5 million vehicles are produced per year with our technology. We have a lot of development, again, 4th generation platforms. That development isn't something that we did in China. These are Cambridge engineers. There is a lot of experience in those 16 years that have been put back into our platforms. We have over 1,000 global customers, around 5 global economic centers here that you can see. And then if anybody knows who Gartner is, this is how we're seen by Gartner is really well known in terms of looking at technologies out there and then grading technologies. And they have something which is called the Magic Quadrant for indoor location services. And we're a visionary there for the 3rd year running. And probably the thing we're most proud of is this is the last one here, Customer's Choice. We received that, one of 2 companies this year. And that one's great because that was voted on by users. So it's anonymous. We don't know what the user said. They were reached out to. They wanted to know what location technologies they're using and who they thought was best in class. So we're pretty proud of that. Again, just give you some of the logos of the companies, those 1,000 companies that we do business with. We're 9 of the top 10 automotive and 3 of the top 5 aerospace manufacturers globally. And so what do? We improve processes around the areas of productivity, quality, and safety in the various industries that you see listed here. Our product portfolios. So today you're going to see our Dimension 4 real-time location system. It's based on the technology of ultra-wideband, and that's what we're going to be using here today for our location feed. And then we have our Smartspace software, which is Smartspace is an application configuration. It's not a software development kit. It is a culmination of building applications using location technologies. And important to know, Smartspace is agnostic, so it doesn't just work with UBisense's Dimension 4 real-time location system. It works with Bluetooth Low Energy, GPS, passive RFID, third-party RTLS. So it's an open platform in terms of whatever location feed can come into the platform. And it's also open at the top because our position is we're not a system of record, but we bring location services to the existing business systems of record and empower them and bring value that way. So what do? We track the real-time location, movement, and interaction. That's key because you'll see how this works out there, of people, devices, and products, mostly in manual processes. So what does that mean? If you look at traditional IoT, which would be on the left where you have automated processes, typically the status of your process is defined by the state of machine or by the status or the state of machines that complete tasks. Traditional IoT helps by monitoring and controlling machine status. But this is mainly just a machine that's static and that's not moving. You look at manual processes, this is where our technology fits over here, which complements IoT in the terms of the status of your process. We're creating a live digital twin, if you will, a real-time situational awareness with location technologies. And we're looking for defining the process and watching the process and watching it through complex series of physical movement and interaction of people, assets, and spaces, which traditional IoT doesn't reach out and do that. So if there's a lot of buzzwords out there, and I heard you talk about digital strategy and the digital strategy roadmap, and what's the difference between IoT and what's the difference between a digital twin. That's how we kind of try to explain how we fit in the world of IoT, where we're actually looking at not pulling information, which is a great use case. It's just not our technology. Taking data and analytics off a specific machine by monitoring a machine, maybe monitoring the condition or monitoring the performance over time. We're watching the movement and interaction of components, parts, people, AGVs, AMRs, and we're tying all that movement where it brings value into those existing business systems. So another slide that kind of explains that well. We take real-world processes on the bottom, and we take all this movement and interaction that are happening in your manufacturing processes that are not currently tied in with the LAN. And we bring that up through our Smartspace platform, and we bring that into existing business systems. We call it a location enabling the environment, and Smartspace handles the complexity of location, right? We have customers that have thousands of sensors. Automotive customers in terms of scalability of our solution. Thousands of sensors, thousands of tags, tags updating at 4 times a second because we're watching a tool go on and off an assembly line or multiple tools. Over 1.5 billion reads every 24 hours. That's a lot of information. ERP systems, WMS systems, they're not designed to handle that type of data. They're not designed to handle location stream information. So that's what we do. We synthesize that, bring that up into our Smartspace platform, and then there are some applications that you configure use cases and business rules within Smartspace, or like what we have out here in our partner, Flexwear. We have a hybrid out here where they're taking the location streams from our Smartspace platform and building that inside of Ignition. So I'm going to pause here because I'm going to transition to another slide, see if there's any questions, comments, anything before?
Is location the only information you can track, or can you instrument how it's determine if they were exposed to shock?
Yeah, so our technology, that's not us, but we could take a feed like that with the platform itself. It's interesting because we were just having a conversation about that over lunch. So let's talk about the kind of the framework with which how we look through the lens of addressing manual process challenges by using location. So we categorize this, and this isn't an exhaustive list. This is just meant to give a base understanding of how do we look and what type of applications are we addressing with location. So the first one is location. What does that mean? Where are things? Now, I'll caution all of you in here, if you take off on a project and you think you're going to be able to get an ROI on just finding things, tread carefully. You need to find other value with the location system. There is a lot of invisible waste in trying to find things, but it's extremely hard to get an ROI on that when it's an infrastructure demand to get your tracking technology in to be able to find things. But when you start to bring other business systems in and you layer in, well, not just where is my tool, but what state is my tool in? Is my tool calibrated? Is my tool past its preventative maintenance cycle? Those types of things that, again, will show out. In our demo room, interaction. Two or more things are interacting. So you're going to hear us talk a lot about spaces, and you're going to hear us talk a lot about spatial extents. So if you heard a lot about geofencing, just change geofencing to spatial extents. So for us, geofencing is just a fence, a straight line. Spatial extents inside of software, Casey will go into this a little bit deeper out there, we build 3D extents. And so we're building 3D spaces all over the factory, and we're looking for objects coming in and containment and interacting with that. Whether that object is in the software, it's an extent, but that object could be an AMR. That object could be a person. That object could be a tool. We're looking for interaction and to take an event from that interaction. Count. Are there too many or too few items in a particular area? This will play into one of the demonstrations you'll see when we drive an AMR to go get some parts. Duration. Task is taken too long or not long enough. And then finally, sequence. And again, this is all of these are woven inside or in our demonstrations. So just to kind of go through some other use cases with each of these. So again, location. A product with option B is in the option A fitting area. We only want to know that because we're looking for things that are going wrong, not things that are going right. A worker's in the wrong workstation. Maybe they're not trained to be in that workstation. A crane hook is in a safety zone or a keep out zone. What's on the safety hook? Is it going into the right cleaner? Is it actually, does the hook need to be out of the way? We do a lot of things called process interlock, where lines pulse and big machines move. Well, if there's crane hooks and assisted lifts that are still over in the pulse area of the equipment, guess what? Those get hit, those get taken out. So we can track those and make sure they're back in a home position and send that information to the control system, MES system, prior to a machine pulsing. A tool is being used in the wrong workstation. Piece of support equipment is not in the work area when needed. Another example, a trailer is at the wrong dock door. Problems of interaction, two or more things are interacting. An inspection tablet is at the wrong inspection task or area. A tool has the wrong settings for the product it's working on. Again, this is real time, and you'll see this, where we're interfaced with a control out there, a tool control out there. And it's a very low latency system with the architecture behind our RTLS system. And we can shut tools down in real time before quality escapement happens. Parts being fitted to the wrong product. Crane hook is about to collide with the product. We just went over that one. The wrong part is placed in a kit tote. Or everybody's having supply problems. Maybe now your supplies have come in and they actually need to catch up with the kit they were supposed to go out in. Where is that kit in my factory? A forklift or an AMR is picking up the wrong pallet. Count. A work in process storage area contains too many products. A workstation is empty. What do you do if a workstation is empty? Well, if we have machines, finished equipment, sitting in a yard or being stored somewhere that needs to get into that bay, then somebody should be notified, right? Get that invisible waste out so that somebody knows that now the bay is available. A parts buffer is running low. Not all fastenings have been completed for a part. A work in process buffer is overflowing or starving. Too many trucks awaiting yard check-in. Problems of duration. A task is taken too long or not long enough. We can see whether an inspection process has overrun or not happened. A scheduled task hasn't started yet. A product has been too long in the overhaul process. Parts replenishment overdue. A product has remained between process steps too long, or a process step has overrun. Sequence in the last one here. A product has skipped a process step. A set of bolts being fastened in the wrong sequence. Product has been sent through the wrong steps in the wrong order. Part kits are staged in the wrong sequence or the wrong area. The planned task sequence does not optimize the workstation utilization, so we'll talk a little bit about in terms of our data lake. Our data lake is location history. And when you look at location history over a long period of time, you can really start to see your process if you're watching and tracking the right things, and whether it's efficient or whether it's not efficient. A product has repeated a process step. So we're going to go over these a little bit more when we're out in the demonstrations, but just wanted to kind of give you guys, and I believe that we're going to share this presentation and circulate this out so you guys have this to reference. But again, those 5 areas of location problems or process issues that we address with location. So at this point, I'm going to hand it over to Brent, and he's going to give you a quick introduction and overview of the demonstrations you're going to see.
Thank you, Brad.
Yes, I have a quick question for you real quick.
So are those, so all those use cases you have, are you providing enough context to a higher level system to make those decisions and see those, or are they passed up as events?
It can be both. It can be both, yeah. Typically what we're doing is we're the situational awareness on the floor, and either we're getting information from a system in order to make a decision, or your top level is.
So it's or in that you don't have to have that context if the higher level system doesn't give it to you. You could essentially just get position data for the higher level system to make that.
We can do that. If we can define the process and we can define what you're looking for. So we're very careful, especially in highly regulated industries like aerospace, for an example. We don't come in and change processes, right? We come in and try to make those processes visible and look for the things that can go wrong. And some of that context we may need from an existing business system, or they may need from our tracking system. But we can pass information both ways.
You're going to see that today, John, out there. So there's 2 different use cases. One of them is doing tool control, and that's all done within Ubisense using their configuration of business rules. And then another one just passing location data up into ignition, and ignition doing applying the business logic to it. So both ways. Okay.
Yeah, so a good example, I'm going to add to that a little bit. So in a good example of that, right, like what we do a lot of times in automotive is we know what vehicle's coming into that workstation, and then that vehicle or that particular variant and what needs to happen to that particular vehicle is all in. That's not our business system. That's in the existing business systems, MES operation systems. We're just saying, okay, we know that it's this variant, and we know it's this specific tool, and we know this specific tool needs to go to these specific areas, and we're monitoring that happens.
You mentioned things as use cases.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We kind of tread carefully on that, right? Because not a lot of people know that they're necessarily being tracked. But our system is pretty unique in that we don't track the actual person. We track the tag ID. So whether or not the tag ID tells who the person is, like in our use case, you're going to see our names on the screen. But in terms of like contact tracing, we were GDPR compliant with ours because you could just go back and say with the contact tracing, just the tag IDs would come out in the report, and then send that to your security or your HR, and they can make that marriage. Our system, we don't know who was associated to what tag. That can all be managed in a company's security, the way they go about their security and policies.
All right, I better get started before these guys do my slide for me. So,
We can just skip. Let's go out.
all right. Well, now we're going to get to the fun part here. So I'm going to do a quick overview of the live demos you're about to see and the 4 use cases we're going to cover. And these are pretty high-level use cases that really kind of show the functional concepts of these systems. But as Bryce and Brad were mentioning, the power really shines when you integrate these together. And when you do that, the possibilities of what you can do with knowledge location mixed with your business systems is really, limitless. So our first use case you're going to see is around operator validation. And to answer the question, yeah, this is about knowing who is where and are they where they should be. Our next use case will be in tool control. So we're going to be physically controlling a tool based on where it is, but this tool could be other equipment or assets or what have you. But as this tool goes where it's not supposed to be, it will not work, and if it's where it's supposed to be, it will work. Our third use case will be around this tablet responding to where it is. So as you move around the facility, you can automatically have the system automatically change what you see and to be relative to where you physically are standing. And our last use case will be tying a lot of these together, and it's going to be about production logistics or moving materials around your facility based on where people are and where things are. In this case, it'll be like where containers of material are. So I already did this here, but before we go out there, are there any other questions? And then after that...